So, how is everyone feeling after that last chapter of Death and Rebirth? Personally, I have not recovered because what the fuck was that ending? But we're not here to talk about that. We are here to talk about Sylus and MC. First of all, I just want to say that this main story update was wild. And it wasn't just your regular action-packed, drama-filled update. It was loaded with lore. I have so much to say because a ton of new information was revealed and several of my personal theories got confirmed. So before we dive in, I am not here to tell you how to think or how to interpret this story. I'm just here to share my perspective. This will be part 1 of the Death and Rebirth breakdown because there's way too much happening to squeeze into one single video. Today, we're focusing specifically on the events from Absurdity Unfolds and all from Deepspace, which heavily revolve around Sylus and MC. As always, feel free to jump into the comments, share your thoughts and theories because I read every single one. Before we get to the nitty-gritty of the big lore reveals, let's do a quick recap on what happened in the first chapters of Absurdity Unfolds. What actually prompted all of this. In the first chapters of Absurdity Unfolds, we are shown that rumors and conspiracies are spreading about the Far Space Fleet quietly eliminating anomalous wanderers. And in the midst of the chaos, Ever announces a controversial new project, the Fountain of Aether, reliant on protocore technology, splitting the public into 2 groups, those who are on board with protocore tech and those who are against it, prototist and purist. If you want a deeper dive into the history of prototists and purists about the beginning of when the public opinions start to split, you can find that in World Underneath 15, or you can watch my World Underneath 11 to 18 video. I talk about it in detail there. So, because of the conspiracies that started popping up surrounding the fleet and the Hunters Association, RMC is tasked with transporting the spatium core to a secure vault. But before she reaches her destination, she's attacked and ends up absorbing the core herself. This is the moment everything starts to unravel. Emotionally, she is wrecked because this mysterious woman dropped these cryptic lines about her past.
Did Josephine ever mention our time together at the Gaia Research Center? You were born in the depths of deep space. You were supposed to be ours, a one-of-a-kind, precious creation.
And it forces her to face everything she's been avoiding for years. Physically, she's hit with searing chest pain, likely due to her body not being adjusted to this new power from the spatium core. And we get another major development. The Hunters Association quietly admits there might be a high-ranking mole among them. If you've seen my Ever video, you know that I've been suspicious about this for a while. We don't get a full reveal yet. We don't know who it is. It's hard to figure out what the Hunters Association is up to, because Sylus is also involved with the Hunters Association. In one of the in-game articles, it shows that he has been donating money to them, and he's been meeting up with their boss.
I'm heading to the 15th floor to discuss something with your boss, if things go poorly.
So it is pretty hard to tell if they're on MC's side or are they working with Ever. But this moment right here, the words that this lady said about RMC's origin and her past in the Gaia Research Center, this is what kicks off everything that follows. RMC's identity crisis, Sylus' true role emerging, and a long chain of revelations about power, trust, and destiny. Now, there is a lot of huge lore reveals in these 2 chapters, and we're gonna break them down one by one, starting with Sylus. So one of the biggest reveals is that Sylus orchestrated this entire sequence of events. This man had been meticulously planning every step of this moment ever since he set foot on this timeline. He's the one who freed MC when she was still a child in the Gaia Research Center, setting everything into motion. From that point forward, her confronting Dimitri, grappling with her past, and eventually remembering what she actually is, it all led toward a future Sylus already anticipated. I called this 2 months ago in my MLQC video, and seeing that theory confirmed is so satisfying. Sylus is basically playing 4D chess. Before we go on any further, I just want to acknowledge and just give huge props to the devs and the writers for how intricately they've built this whole reveal. The storytelling, especially with the World Underneath entries that dropped a few months ago leading up to this update, has been absolutely top tier. The meticulous world building and careful groundwork laid in previous chapters made this payoff incredibly satisfying. So what exactly happened? How did Sylus orchestrate this entire sequence of events that ultimately led to MC finally remembering? Let's rewind and break down this timeline piece by piece. In chapter 5 of
All from Deepspace,
Sylus explicitly hints at his arrival to the N109 zone being far from coincidence. And after the revelations in this update, it's clear that, yeah, it's not a coincidence. Sylus first came to Earth, all because he'd learned the location of the Eye of Aether. After closely analyzing the clues given in his anecdote and this current update, I've come to the conclusion that the Eye of Aether is actually the Deepspace tunnel. Why? So in his anecdote, Sylus notes explicitly that his next target, the Eye of Aether, isn't something you can grab. And it was written here that the area under the Eye of Aether is described as forever shrouded in darkness and experiencing severe protofield disturbances. This perfectly matches the state of the N109 zone. And the Gaia Research Center where MC was experimented on is located precisely in the area now known as the N109 zone, the epicenter of the Chrono Rift catastrophe. Even visually, the Deep Space Tunnel resembles an eye. Also, this vision that MC saw at the end of Prologue to Tomorrow is basically the Chrono Rift catastrophe when it first happened. But in case I'm wrong, regardless of the Eye of Aether is the Deep Space Tunnel or not, he came to Earth for that, and he came to Earth during the Chrono Rift catastrophe in 2034, which is 14 years ago. Sylus finds and frees RMC from the Gaia Research Center, and he makes a deal with Dimitri, agreeing simply to bring her back to see him someday. Once she's free, he leaves her alone because the time lock story says he retreats and goes back the way he came, and he left her alone for 14 years. But during that 14 years, he is constantly watching over her life in Lincoln, and her missions as a deep space hunter until they meet again in long-awaited revelry. During their time apart, 2 years after the Chrono Rift catastrophe and after freeing RMC, in 2036, he takes advantage of a gang war erupting in the N109 zone, triggered by the infamous Protocore map. This is discussed in World Underneath 14. I've broken down that whole fiasco in a separate video if you need deeper context. Using the chaos, Sylus climbs the ranks and seizes control of the N109 zone, becoming a ruler of the lawless land. He negotiates with the owner of Elysium and agreed to protect this place in exchange for the Protocore map itself, the thing that started the whole gang war. During this takeover, he placed a crucial item on Elysium's connoisseur's menu, Sweet Evil Trap. Its description reads, "I'm waiting for you." And the final ingredient listed is 10.5 grams of soul, symbolizing their bond, a connection that literally runs soul deep. Fast forward to 14 years later, when MC comes across the menu, she immediately knows that it was left by him. Using it as a clue, she's able to track Sylus down after they had split up to handle obstacles keeping them from reaching their true destination, the Gaia Research Center. So when I first made this video analyzing World Underneath 14, I thought Sylus left this cryptic clue for MC to stumble upon if she ever wandered into the N109 zone. I imagined it as a bittersweet gesture, like Sylus hoping that she would accidentally wandered into the N109 zone and found this and it would lead her back to him. But no, I was wrong. This was not a hopeful romantic gesture. Sylus was not passively waiting, he was actively plotting. This man was orchestrating the events of this exact day 14 years in advance. From the moment he made the deal with Dimitri, took control of Elysium, and placed that item on the menu, he was laying out the path that would inevitably lead MC to her awakening or realization. This man is like a composer watching the final movement of a symphony he wrote fucking 14 years ago play out exactly as planned. Sure, some notes may differ and out of tune. The antimatter weapon and the androids from Ever might have fallen slightly outside his calculations, but he always knew exactly when and how this symphony would reach its crescendo. And he's always been there, guiding her step by step towards realizing and mastering her power. Even back in long-awaited Revelry, when he helped her absorb her first ether core, Sylus didn't just urge her to become stronger. He carefully nudged her along a path only he could fully see, preparing for battles she couldn't yet imagine. Back in long-awaited Revelry, she barely understood what was happening, but Sylus, he knew exactly what was unfolding, because he's always known precisely what she is, the vast potential she holds, and the stronger battles she'll have to face in the future. That's why he wants her to get stronger, to gain more power, because he knows shit is gonna go down in the future. It was through his deliberate patient guidance that she finally discovered her cosmic origin and began to remember the life they once shared in another timeline. The timeline this Sylus came from. This main story update shows us just how intentional Sylus is, how he watches silently, patiently, and never interfering too soon. Like when she asked about the Gaia Research Center, he never gave her easy answers. Instead, he just waited until she needed a nudge, then quietly guide her back on track. And even when she asked for help winning the Zoyon hunt, Sylus initially refused, letting her doubt herself, question her decisions. But in the end, he stepped in anyway, always guiding, but never taking away her agency. And the reason his 14-year plan worked at all, it's not just because he's calculated, it's because he trusts her deeply. Sylus knows the depth of her capabilities, and he's carrying forward the faith that the MC he once knew always had in herself and in him.
You would have done this sooner or later. That's just who you are. Speaking of which, you never doubted yourself, or worried about my capabilities for that matter.
He knew no matter how many miscalculations or distractions fell into her path, she will ultimately find her way. And that is why I just love him so much. I love how he lets her do her thing and he never takes away her agency, letting her find her own way. Also, the fact that Sylus called her little bomb the moment he rescued her means that he had read the experimental notes about her and he knew exactly what these researchers had done to her. Can you imagine what went through his mind when he saw those notes for the first time? For someone who knew everything from the very beginning, to carry the knowledge that the soul eternally bound to his own had been used, tormented, experimented on, to watch Dimitri, the man who tried to destroy her, walk free, and to let him rule over Charon for 14 years without laying a hand on him? The restraint that this man has is crazy. He did not touch him for 14 years. But he was never acting out of mercy. He was keeping a promise, his deal with Dimitri. Also, watching Sylus finally kills him after 14 years of restraint was deeply satisfying. But the fact that this scene wasn't animated was actually criminal, but I'll take what I can get. I'm satisfied. The lore is really good. Before I move on, I just want to talk about the symbolism here for a second. I love that we're seeing more mythical imagery creeping into this part of the story, especially tied to the N109 zone. Dimitri calling himself this.
I'm just a ferryman on the river Styx. I help travelers cross.
And MC eating pomegranate seeds, like Persephone in Greek mythology. Yes, I know it's not pomegranate seeds, it says pomegranate juice, but you know what I mean. It's like she's eating the food from the underworld. In Greek mythology, once Persephone eats the fruit of the underworld, she's forever tied to it. Part of her can never leave. And that symbolism fits, because no matter how far MC goes, and no matter what power she awakens or truths she uncovers, the N109 zone, the underworld Sylus rules, will always be a part of her, because that's where she first emerged in this timeline, in the Gaia Research Center, which is now the N109 zone. See, this is the stuff I love. The devs are taking mythological references and weaving them deeply into the structure of this world, using them to hint at something fundamental about MC's origin. Persephone's myth isn't just a cool reference, it perfectly mirrors MC's own nature. When Persephone descends into the underworld, the earth enters winter, a symbolic death or dormancy of nature. But when she returns, spring comes, renewal, rebirth. It's endless, inevitable, death and rebirth forever intertwined. And with the revelation of her origin in this main story update, that's exactly what MC is. Not destruction as an end, but destruction as transformation. Now, since we're on the topic of Sylus, let's talk about this other timeline MC remembered after learning about her origin, their other existence together in a different timeline. So first of all, I think this is really obvious. This is Infold teasing their third myth, potentially. So this is a vision that MC got after learning about her true self. And this is the first time we're getting a real glimpse into what Sylus was doing before he got thrown into space prison. And based on how it's presented, his younger voice, the cheering crowd, it seems like Sylus and MC were both born into a brutal world and they had to fight wanderers and monsters that looked like modified humans for entertainment. From the way they talk in the flashback, you can tell they've always fought side by side. And when it's just the two of them left, the crowd demanded blood. They wanted them to fight each other to the death. And that fits the pattern we've seen again and again. In every version of their existence, Sylus and MC are caught in the same cruel cycle of fate. They're always destined to destroy each other. But instead of fighting her, he reached out his hand and he asked if she wanted to run away with him. And they did escape together, based on what he said. But the deep space tunnel tore them apart. The vast, chaotic force that can rip through energy itself separated them, but it did not sever their bond, because their souls are always intertwined, bound to each other in every lifetime, across every parallel. And just like some cruel joke from fate, after God knows how long they've been separated, fate points Sylus right back to her, the Eye of Aether. Learning about what this current Sylus has been through with MC in his timeline, this line that he said in Magnum Opus hits really hard.
Well, allow me to put it in simpler terms. At that time, I thought we were like flowers. We were meant to grow together in the same soil. Yet you were quietly moved to another garden in a foreign land. Still, you managed to bloom beautifully.
So what happened after the separation? How did Sylus know that the Eye of Aether is connected to MC? And why is the Eye of Aether a treasure? We have no idea. But somewhere along the way, Sylus ended up in space jail, and we don't know how long he's been in there. And based on what we can see from his anecdote, he's probably involved in some kind of crime organization. Of course he is, he's Sylus, because right before he landed on Earth, he was talking to people on his ship about doing sketchy stuff. Who are these people? And what kind of chaos was he wrapped up in back then? We have no clue, but I'm actually so hyped about that because it means that there's still a whole chunk of space criminal Sylus lore we haven't even touched yet. We've got more to look forward to. Before moving on, I've got something to say. So recently, after this update, I've been seeing how the fandom are falling into this trap of viewing time as a straight line, which honestly is a big mistake when it comes to how time works in this game. I've touched on this topic in this other video, but I will say it again here, because I've seen so many people say things like, Sylus and MC died after the dragon myth and then reincarnated into this other lifetime. No, that is not how this universe operates. And this is not a theory, this is not my opinion, this is what is written in the game. It's written in the game multiple times, guys. This universe works from a multiverse perspective. For those who already knows how this works, I'm sorry if you have to hear this again, but I just have to say it because there's still so many people that are getting this wrong. In a multiverse, there are infinite versions of the same person existing across parallel timelines. Some may be alive, some not, but they all exist simultaneously within the multiverse. In some universe, they don't even exist at all, like how MC doesn't exist in Dawnbreaker Zane's universe. They're not hopping from one to another, they're literally living all these lives at the same time. Like Zane and Dawnbreaker Zane, for example. They coexist at the same moment. Dawnbreaker Zane did not come after or before main timeline Zane. They're parallel expressions of the same soul. So, linear thinking? Throw that out. You are not looking at a straight line, you are staring into a web. I know someone's gonna bring up reincarnation, especially since the game directly referenced it in the version 3 music video. So I know most people are used to thinking of reincarnation as something that happens in a line. You live, you die, then your soul moves on to the next life. A, B to C, it's linear. And the moment you try to shove that linear reincarnation concept into a multiverse, it clashes with everything the game's been telling us. But you have to understand that reincarnation comes from Buddhist and Hindu philosophies, and there are many branches of philosophies of Buddhism and Hinduism, and not all philosophies treat reincarnation in a straight line. The game is clearly taking inspiration from Buddhist and Hindu philosophies that goes hand in hand with the idea of a multiverse, which is Hawaiian Buddhism and the concept of Indra's net of jewels. For those who are familiar with this concept, I'm sure this immediately clicks. And you already know that this game is pulling the reincarnation and the multiverse concept directly from it. This is how the woo-woo reincarnation and the scientific multiverse concept can go hand in hand, because because of this. I won't get too deep into it because I'm saving that breakdown for another video, but the takeaway is this. Time isn't linear in this universe, and the dragon myth is just another version. It's not a past, it's another thread in the same net. This line from World Underneath 4 ties everything together perfectly, especially after the revelations about MC's origin, that she's actually a higher dimensional or cosmic being, whatever you want to call it. And based on what we've seen from this update, I think there is a strong possibility that Sylus and maybe even the others are also some type of cosmic higher dimensional beings as well. I know, I'll get into that later. I'll talk about Sylus here, but the others, it's gonna have to be in a separate video because it's too much. In this game, time does not work in a straight line for higher dimensional beings. Everything is coexisting all at once. Finally, let's talk about the whole fiasco that happened when MC reached the Gaia Research Center. I want to trail off from Sylus and MC for a second and talk about something that caught me completely off guard. The Gaia Research Center has specialized research rooms dedicated to researching things connected to the OG3, the Backtrackers, Lemuria, and the Emissary of the Divine, which is Zane. When I saw that, I was like, what the fuck? What do you mean? They were experimenting on the OG3? And I tried very hard to make sense of this. So the Backtrackers and Lemuria make sense, because we know from World Underneath 4 that the Backtrackers have been on Earth for a long time, for more than 200 years. And we also know that they're working together with Ever, so them being there, it makes sense. And Lemuria is a full-on ancient fallen civilization that exists on Earth, underwater. And plus, we already know that Ever has done experiments on them, so that makes sense. But Zane, that's the part that did not click at all. Because Zane didn't even learn about the fractal library or his connection to the divine until he went to the Arctic. And at that point, he was already a full-grown man, a medic. And the Arctic incident, that happened not too long ago, because he was already an adult when it happened. Meanwhile, the Gaia Research Center was destroyed 14 years ago. So it doesn't add up. Well, I might have an answer to that. And it comes from something Dimitri said to MC.
It began in 2034, when humanity received a faint signal from deep space. Once it was decoded, it revealed a story about a planet's quest for immortality. An ordinary planet achieved immortality by harnessing an inexhaustible cosmic energy source. They inspired us.
They received a signal, they decoded it, and it inspired them. So when he said signal, I immediately thought of these. These messages appear across nearly every myth card, except Xavier's Shooting Star and Sylus's Beyond Cloudfall. What made me come to this conclusion is this one from Abyss Walker. It says Legends from Deepspace, and the story that they decoded that inspired them to chase immortality is the same one that led to their current project, The Fountain of Aether. It's this poem. This was the first message they decoded from another civilization. And after getting their first signal, they probably kept looking for more and receiving more. That's likely how they learned about the other civilizations and about Zane. And this is probably how they first found out about Lemuria and how Lemurians exist. The Backtrackers, I'm convinced that they came to Ever willingly. And that might be why their research room isn't labeled like a name of a civilization. It's literally just called Life in the Future Backtracker. That's their team name, a group of time travelers. And we already know from World Underneath 6 and from Xavier's prologue to Tomorrow that the Backtrackers are working directly with Ever. But hey, I could be wrong. But this is the way it all makes sense to me right now. Now let's get to the juicy stuff. MC's origin. Infold gave us a cosmic level drop, literally, but also left a ton of shit deliberately vague, which is to be expected. Right now, they're giving us glimpses, not full answers, because they're leaving room for more big reveals in the future. So I'm gonna do what I always do, break down what we've got and interpret it the best I can. But if future updates prove me wrong, don't look at me. We've all got the same puzzle pieces, and I'm just yapping about how I arrange mine. Okay, so there is a lot to unpack here, so bear with me, and I'm gonna pull different lines and scenes from the game that describe what she is, and break them down piece by piece. Based on what Dimitri said, she was created because humanity received a faint signal from deep space, and the signal they received was the Fountain of Aether poem. Once it was decoded, it revealed a planet's quest for immortality, and it inspired them to do the same, hence why their current big project now is called the Fountain of Aether. So they conducted an experiment using collision limitations to create this inexhaustible cosmic energy. They failed a bunch of times, but then they succeeded. So MC is the first successful experiment from the Fountain of Aether, which is why the lady from the very beginning said that she's the key to the Fountain of Aether, and the current one is just a replica because she's the first successful one. This inexhaustible cosmic energy manifested in a form of a child, and every time she dies or pushed to the brink, she grows stronger. That's something we've already seen in World Underneath 6 and in what Dimitri said. And here we see it happen. When she's fighting for her life and she's pushed to the brink, her evil kicks in and she grows stronger. This deep, primal hum. And then it shatters what's described as invisible chains. Then based on this line, it says, her soul surges forth and her consciousness disperses. So all this, to me, feels like her shedding the limitations of her vessel. No longer confined to a single body, it unravels and spreads out, unbound by space or time. It's not just awareness expanding, it's her entire self dissolving into the fabric of existence. Okay, let's move to the next line. And from deep space, a mysterious connection descends. Her awareness fades, her body feels weightless, and the eye appears again, which, as I've established before, I think this is the deep space tunnel. It devours her completely. From the way I see it, it's like she's being reabsorbed into the thing that she originally came from. I think of it as a wave returning to the ocean. And then we get this iconic cutscene of her remembering who she is, or more accurately, what she really is. What am I? In boundless darkness, I drift through the cosmos. It's like I'm part of it. I am the cosmos. In the vast cosmos, my power has no starting point or destination. It appeared when the universe was created. It's a fundamental law etched into the fabric of existence. These lines is her realizing that her power, her existence, is made from the same stuff as space-time itself. She's not just in the universe, she is part of its design, its equation. She's a cosmic energy, primordial, and she appeared when the universe was created. She is a fundamental law etched into the fabric of existence. She is a constant, like gravity, woven into the structure of reality. I see a planet on the brink of destruction, and the different paths it would take. Some explode like tiny fireworks before their life could begin, others are further along in their journey. So, the moment she breaks out of her invisible chain, which I interpret as her mortal body, and she is out of her physical vessel, her consciousness disperses and she returns to her source. There is no more limitations. The veil lifts. She doesn't just see timelines. She is the force that threads through them. The pattern of collapse, rebirth, and endings is not told to her, it is her. When she's no longer bound by flesh, which is bound by time, she becomes or returns to her original form, which is closer to a cosmic or a higher dimensional being, able to observe all possibilities at once. You see how this tracks with this line from World Underneath 4 now? In this state for a brief moment, because there are no more limitations and she's not bound by invisible chains, she's able to look into her other consciousness that is fragmented across the cosmos. That's why she's able to look into this other life she had with Sylus. A tiny core takes its place, the one born from destruction, the Origo core. The Origo core descends upon a planet nearing collapse. It's waiting for the end and its own birth. That is her essence. Her mortal body contains the Origo core, and she possesses destructive energy. But it's not the kind that leads to death and decay, it's the kind that clears the slate, that makes way for something new. Destruction as transformation, death and rebirth. Basically, she's the universe's reset button. Since every life and civilization is destined to end, it's almost like her arrival is inevitable. Like she's not just a being, but a certainty. A law of the universe, showing up when the end is near. And then we get this next line about the Origo core. Cosmic strings resonate with it. Space-time twists and stretches. So the game went full-on science-y here, so let's get science too. Cosmic strings are a theoretical concept introduced by physicist Tom Kibble in 1976. They're not literal strings, but more like ancient cracks in the universe. Thin, ultra-dense lines of energy that might have formed right after the Big Bang. Imagine how cracks form when ice freezes too fast. It's like that, but on the scale of the cosmos. If they exist, they'd be some of the earliest, most powerful structures in the universe. Which brings us to the next part, space-time. According to general relativity, it's not a fixed stage. It's flexible. It responds to energy and mass, and the stronger the energy, the more space-time it bends. When something massive enough, like a black hole or the Big Bang exists, space-time can twist, stretch, even fracture. So the fact that the Origo core, the energy inside MC, her essence, can make cosmic strings resonate and cause space-time itself to twist, that tells us something insane. Her energy isn't just powerful, her essence is old as fuck. It's primordial if she's able to resonate with cosmic strings. The Origo core does not move through reality like a person, it restructures reality around it. So what does this tell us? MC isn't just a part of some cosmic cycle, she's the force that triggers it. She's not reacting to destruction, she's the herald of it. The sign that a timeline has reached its critical point. A walking law of nature, arriving at the end of a world, just before something new begins. Basically, her physical and mortal existence is not supposed to exist, just like death in a human form is not supposed to exist. She is not a being that should be contained in flesh. Her existence as a person, walking, speaking, bleeding, is already a paradox. And we know that Ever did not create that form. What they created, or I guess summoned, at best, was a vessel to hold something they couldn't fully understand. Ever did not create her. Dimitri has no idea what he's talking about when he said that she's not ancient. Her essence is just as old as the universe itself. He just witnessed the manifestation of that energy and assumed it was a one-time phenomenon. But what he didn't understand, and what the myths have already showed us, is that she's existed like this before, in physical form, in different places across timelines. By creating or summoning her, Ever just brought the universe's reset button into their planet. Her existence means that she's going to bring destruction to this timeline because that is just her nature. Civilizations can try to use her as an inexhaustible energy source because her existence is literally woven into the fabric of the universe. That's why her energy is inexhaustible or endless. That's why she's immortal. But what Ever didn't realize when they created her or summoned her, what they failed to decode from those signals from deep space, is that this so-called inexhaustible cosmic energy comes with a price. This endless cosmic energy destroys. Destruction is a part of its nature. And the fact that they couldn't measure or analyze her power is because she's beyond human comprehension. They tried to put a cosmic energy in a test tube. Of course it fucking broke. So why does this cosmic primordial energy even exist in physical form? And not just once, but across timelines? We don't know yet, and honestly, we won't know until the game decides to tell us. But if I had to guess, my theory ties back to this line. My power has no starting point or destination. Obviously, this line tells us that she's not a person with a soul that was born at a certain point. Her energy predates form entirely. She moves through time and space like a force, not a single contained consciousness. And when something that vast is made to inhabit a mortal vessel, it can't stay whole. That's why her consciousness by nature is fragmented. The body, the vessel, just can't hold something that big. I think that's why she's fucking everywhere. Since she's a cosmic scale entity, her existence is too vast, too fundamental to ever be bound into one timeline or to one form. There's still something I want to break down from this particular line, so let's look at it again. In the vast cosmos, my power has no starting point or destination. It appeared when the universe was created. It's a fundamental law etched into the fabric of existence. At some point, a force, weak yet unbreakable, began to bind me, and with it came an endless fall. I don't know about you, but to me, this sounds like she was chilling in the cosmic soup, completely untethered, part of the universe itself, and then something bound her. And to me, the fall sounds like she's describing the moment she went from being something cosmic, something untouchable and unbound, to something trapped in a form. The fall here doesn't feel literal. To me, it sounds like the descent into mortality. The first time death, time, and identity began to apply to her. The moment consciousness, separation, entered the equation. I think I got so caught up in breaking down this whole reveal that I kind of forgot to talk about how the stuff I pointed out in the MC video was actually pointing in the right direction. Yeah, nice. I don't know what to say. Great, I guess. I just hope that video helped enhance your experience when you watch the whole MC reveal. Matter of fact, I hope all of my videos helped enhance your experience when you're playing Love in Deepspace. That's all I want. And since we're on the topic of MC's cosmic existence, let's talk about Sylus, because from my observation there is a lot of overlap here. When Sylus said they were true kindred spirits, I think he meant that quite literally. Not just in a soulmate way, but in an origin level way. Their souls are eternally intertwined, yes, but I think they're made from the same thing. There are a lot of things that points to this. MC has an aether core in her heart. Sylus has one in his eye, and they both can absorb shit. And it was mentioned that they're being held back by some kind of invisible shackle, invisible force. I think just like how MC is some kind of cosmic entity, cosmic being, so is he, and he knows that. He's aware of her scattered consciousness, and he's also aware that his consciousness is scattered too. What he said here.
It's not a big deal. From now on, you'll be seeing more things like that.
He said this after she got the dragon myth visions. This is proof that he is aware of the whole scattered consciousness thing. But unlike her, who needs help to remember, who lost herself, he remembers and he knows. By the way, this whole conversation that they had in the car repair shop is packed with foreshadowing. There are 3 answers you can pick for this dialogue, but I genuinely believe that there's no wrong answer. So here, when he's talking about Sliverno, which means explorer, he's clearly talking about them, about souls like theirs, moving through timelines, trying to break cycles of fate. And then comes this line from MC. The essence of exploration is desire, and desire fuels ambition. It pushes us beyond our limits. You can see this happening in chapter 3 of All in Deepspace. When she's trapped in that glass cage, seconds away from being killed by Dimitri, it's not logic that saves her, it's not power, it's her will, her desire to survive, her ambition. She refuses to give up and she refuses to die. And that spark, that will to live, it shatters her physical body that's been limiting her, pushing her beyond her limits. And another thing that makes me believe that Sylus is just like her is his response to her when she's telling him about what Dimitri said about what she is. As always, he doesn't give her a straight answer. He just asks her questions. Almost like he's encouraging her to think critically, because he knows that the humans, the people from the Gaia Research Center, don't fully understand what she is. And as always, he doesn't hand her the answers. He lets her figure out herself. But the real question is, how does he know? How did he learn about the nature of our main character's existence and the nature of their fragmented consciousness? I think the answer lies in what he went through before he became Space Robin Hood. Also, this line.
I'll help you get used to wielding devastating power. That way you'll be a bomb who doesn't always think about self-destruction.
This is a clear foreshadowing of what's to come, because he understands what he is and what she is and the devastating power that they both have. This shows that he's going to guide her, not control her, not fix her, just be there, helping her master her devastating power on her own terms. And as always, we are left with more questions. And honestly, that's something to be excited about, you know? Because now we actually have a lot to work with. The pieces are finally starting to connect. We now know that this cosmic being, RMC, has a fragmented consciousness, a literal force of nature in physical form, existing across multiple parallels. So why is shit going down only in this planet? Why is it only in this timeline? Why is there no deep space tunnel in other timelines? Why does her presence on Earth in this timeline trigger a literal time rift catastrophe? What makes this timeline special? We don't know for sure. And honestly, that's a whole other topic for another video, because this one is already long as hell. And now that we've confirmed that the deep space tunnel and this eye has a deep connection to her and is most likely a part of her, what about the other ones? Is my theory from the MC video still valid? Is this one also a part of her? Because these two respond directly to her heart and her power. It's actually good that we have a lot of questions, because the story is still ongoing, and it wouldn't be fun if they dropped all the lore bombs in one go. The game's only been out for a little bit more than a year, and we're still early on in the big picture. But I'm so glad we're already getting reveals this layered. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this video. Holy shit, this one was packed. My throat is dry. I really hope I explained everything in a way that made sense. I actually rewrote the structure of this whole entire video 4 times. I'm not gonna lie guys, trying to break down a story this dense in a way that's clear and digestible is not easy. Especially since English is not my first language, sometimes it's hard to express all the connections I've made without sounding like I'm not making any sense or totally unhinged. Well, I tried my best and I hope you enjoyed this video. So, you just watched a grown woman in her mid-20s lose her mind over a dating sim. And we're not done. Tune in for part 2 where I'll be losing it over Zane and the final 2 chapters of Death and Rebirth. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you want and consider subscribing if you enjoy my content. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye! Since every life... Okay, evolution. Could it be that ever is doing this because they want to trigger evolution? The next stage of evolution is immortality. Could it be it? I don't know. A thought just came to me. Origo core. Oreo? Damn, because she is no longer bound by her flesh. NMC eating Persephone. Oh my god, she did not eat Persephone.